Welcome back to Uncover Your Magic. To think a year ago, we were in quarantine lockdown. We were all in our homes wondering when this whole coronavirus thing would end so we could get back to life. Well, it wasn't as fast or wasn't what we even imagined it would look like. Looking back at the year 2020, I realized so many things. First of all, I was on such a fast pace, and even thinking I was enjoying the journey, but in fact, now with my 2020 vision, it was far from that. My 2020 was full of magic and a new awareness of life and what it takes to live in the moment and stop and be present to life. Like people say, 2020 was a pause or a reset or whatever it was for you. I am sure it made an impact in your life and with your family. I still haven't seen my mom, and she only lives 2 hours away. But did I appreciate each time we were together before we had to stay apart? Of course I did. But now, after we are able to be together again, my gratitude and appreciation for the time we get to spend together will have risen to a much higher level. I know each one of my girls woke up to the most gratitude in almost every area they have in their lives: school, musical theater, sports, friends, birthday parties, time with grandma and grandpa and Grammy, and the list goes on. How powerful it is if you can look at 2020 as a gift to our children. As well, I pray for each and every one to realize this life we are living is a gift. I always talk about living in the now, where there is no tomorrow or no yesterday, just this one moment. It's such an important thing to learn in life. Today is a gift from God. I always say that, but now I believe it even more. I've learned so many things in 2020 and realized my passion in this phase of my life. I can look back and see each phase of my life and what my focus was and what my passion was and see where it took me to this moment, to this now. Creating this podcast, which I know most of you know, has been one of the greatest gifts of 2020 for me. It has opened up doors I would have always dreamed of, and now it has been revealed my passion for this phase of my life, which has been helping kids and teenagers and young adults, the powerful laws of the universe. I was asked today what drives me to do what I do. I had to read his text to me a couple times and I had to think about it. I thought about it and for a moment and said, I want every child on this planet to understand the laws of the universe before they leave their homes and go on to college or whatever they choose to do when it's time for them to venture off. I want them to see themselves as powerful humans and believe that they can be, do, or have anything in life. It's in my blood and what wakes me up at 4 a.m. I want to instill tools in those sweet little minds that when they get it and see the magic, that is what lights my soul on fire. I guess why I'm such a believer in that and what I teach is I look back at my 20s before I dove deep into personal development and think, wow, if I knew this before I went to college, life would have been had way more direction, more knowing, and would have been so much easier. That is what drives me. I want kids to get it now, not wait to be in some Tony Robbins seminar crying about their self-limiting beliefs that have robbed them of most of the days of their lives. So here I am on my third round, my third class of Raising Confidence, and I am on a mission, and I am going to shout it to the universe that I will transform and inspire millions of kids before I leave this planet. That is my mission, and I'm sticking to it. Mark my words. That is I just have that in my heart. It just rings something in my soul, and I'm just so passionate about it. So today's guest is unlike any other I have had on this show. She has had two near-death experiences. She has been homeless 2 times, and there are so many more moments in Sherry Gideon's life that she will share with us in this interview. Her story will blow you away. I always love to learn about my guests before we meet, but Sherry is one I couldn't get enough of for some reason. She speaks my language and has the same passion for helping others as I do to see their magic. I know when you listen to Sherry, your life will never be the same. I know mine isn't. Sherry, but before we get going on this conversation with Sherry, let me tell you a little bit more about her. Sherry Gideons has been a professional bodybuilder and fitness expert. As a new thought leader, she has achieved top honors in the fitness wellness industry as a thriving coach and motivator. Her background includes more than 30 years of training in the health and wellness industry, as well as training in metaphysics and communications. Today, she continues her quest for spiritual knowledge and has a unique and powerful ability to address life issues from an integrated and comprehensive level. She has trained with some of the most spiritual teachers on the planet, like Reverend Michael Beckwith, Mary Morrissey, and many more I'm sure we will talk about today. Sherry is pure love and light and knows why she is here, and you can feel it in her energy and see it in her eyes. I am so excited for this interview and for you to meet Sherry. And without further ado, please welcome Sherry Gideons to the show. Welcome, Sherry.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. Glad to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I love the time before I push record to share and get to know each other and get to know each other beyond the stuff I've already learned about you, but to be in person and see your beautiful face on this computer screen and my visual of how it was going to go, and saw it before it happened. And here we are. But to watch you and listen to our life and how I was relating to so many things, to the point where I was going, wow, she did that too. And I'm like, wow, she did that too. And then having that talk and you're saying, oh my gosh, what you said, I did that too. So I just love the magic in this meeting and this podcast and what it's given me. And I'm so grateful to have you here. And your story, I said in the intro, is going to blow people away. And I don't want to cut that short. And I want you to just explain, take it where you want to. And I know you do this on all the shows that you've been able to tell your story on, and just do it whichever way you do. And I'll just listen.
Awesome. Well, I always start out by asking the question, have you ever asked yourself, why am I here? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? And why is life filled with challenge and setback and struggle and a lot of painful experiences? And as you probably heard already from Ashley, I am a survivor of 2 near-death experiences. And a lot of people are afraid of death. And, if you think of death, you have this conjured idea of everything being completely over. And it's not like that at all. And so I was at a point in my life where I was living, through a very dark time. And I came up during the evolution of the pro bodybuilding industry. And during that time, things were changing very fast for women, because every show that I did, there was always a requirement for more muscle. And of course, a lot of us know that you can't get muscle like that for women unless you're using sports enhancement drugs, steroids, and other drugs. And that's what happened to me. This inner not good enough, not worthy, not deserving, was something that I went through a majority of my life, because my father had modeled the behavior that we had to be perfect, and that if you were perfect and you were successful in life, that's how you got attention and love and appreciation. And so I have this conditioned belief, this conditioned behavior, running in my belief system. And so all of the things that I attempted in life were around that belief. And so fast forward, I am at the point in my life where I think that the only way for me to truly prove myself is to not eat at all. Now, meanwhile, I'm living on steroids. I'm living on, at the time, methamphetamine, all to help not eat at all. And so
Right.
here I am, 78 pounds, and I'm at the end of my life. And I began to ask those questions of myself. And lo and behold, lots of experiences began to show up in my everyday life. And I got to the point where I just was asking God, is this it? And on one level, I was begging to die. And on the other level, I was begging to be saved.
Hmm. And when you got to that place and you were 78 pounds, you saw yourself as fat, right? You still didn't see you still weren't perfect.
No, and that's the sad thing is, when you hear those stories that women who have suffered through anorexia and bulimia, That's exactly where I was in my own mindset. And I could look at myself in the mirror and I saw a fat, overweight girl that wasn't good enough. And I literally saw that in the mirror. And in the outside world, I had my mother and friends and people all begging me to eat and telling me this, but I didn't listen and I couldn't hear what was
Huh.
actually going on.
So all of a sudden you have a heart attack, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the gift is that when we leave the body, we are united in oneness. We are united in pure love. And at the same time, you're one with everything. You are all things. You know everything. And I always say, I can't sit here and even give you to the degree that you experience that much love. It's beyond what I could humanly share with you.
I
And it's
love that.
almost like you're held in the arms of this loving presence that knows every feeling you have ever felt, every experience that you have ever gone through, and now is saying to you, it's all okay. You're loved. You have always been loved. But at the same time, the even deeper depth of it, it's as if you are within that power, and you can call it God, you can call it infinite intelligence of the universe, but you are in that oneness, seeing and feeling through it
Hmm.
within everything, every part of life.
Can you still feel that feeling when is it like it happened like just yesterday?
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is, but it takes developing that. It's like anything else in life. We go through certain experiences and we can either use the negative experiences or the challenging experiences as fuel to step into the now, or we can continually put our attention on them and create more of that for ourselves in the moment. And so now what I'm able to do is to milk the gift of that experience right here, right now, anytime I face anything. It's
Mhm.
pretty awesome.
Wow, and tell the message that you received when you were, on the other side.
Yeah. So, one thing that happens, and I want to make this very clear, is I came up in religion. And so my last name's Gideons, like the Gideons Bible. I went to Christian school, and my parents were my parents were Sunday school teachers, and my grandfather was a minister. And so I came up during the 60s and the 70s where you were told, don't ask questions, do as you're told. And I could not ask, even as a little girl. And so I was always told you're judged the day you die, and that is not the case. What happens is we get to relook through everything we have given to. So at any point in my life, from birth until my moment of ascension, I got to feel through the people I had affected. So if I hit somebody, hurt them, stole from them, talked behind their back, judged them, whatever,
Hmm.
or if I gave love and care and kindness, I got to re-feel that as if I was within those people, that
Ah,
through their eyes and through
huh.
their feelings.
Oh, I love that. That gives me tears, but I see that in you. I see that you are that. And I try to we just had this conversation yesterday with my 14-year-old, you've just come from love. It doesn't matter if they're mean and they say all these, just love, love, love. And then yesterday I was listening to who is the woman that's your spiritual teacher you had a discussion with. That was amazing. Do you remember Be the Observer? The whole
Yeah,
thing about being the observer?
yeah, that's my if I could ever um describe the perfection of the perfect mother, that would be my mentor for the last 20 years. I mean, this woman has been there through every moment of the journey for the last 20 years of my life
Wow.
and continually helps me to see the face of God in everyone. And so she's taught me to be the observer of what's showing up in my life. And, what I really want to emphasize is that there is no separation between us and the universe, God, infinite intelligence, you and me. There is no separation between any of us. We are literally all united in oneness. And so when we can really understand that it has nothing to do with the color of your skin or your race or your nationality, we are all God's embodies. And that's what, Reverend Nancy Woods has taught me. She's taught me, if I'm driving down the road and I see a person cut me off, I could have, the reaction of that no good, you know what? And,
Right.
just like so many of us do, end up in that road rage moment.
Mhm.
And instead, what she has continually led me and guided me towards is I have a choice. I have volition in that very moment to react to the same energy that's in front of me and behave in a way that's only going to get me the match frequency or the match vibration of more of that in my life. Or I step back as the observer and I recognize somewhere in that moment that one of those types of experiences showed up. I have a choice. Am I going to attach to what's in front of me? Because if it's there, it's a mirror of a piece of myself that I'm unconscious of. And so it's showing up to reveal itself so I can, let go of it. So I can recognize when I'm out of alignment with what I like to call my vibrational reader meter. And it's
Right.
saying to you, warning, warning. And my goodness, what power we have in that very moment of awareness. Because guess what? It is what is called our point of attraction or our point of power. And so if we're in that very moment of now, behaving from what's in front of us, the same energy, we're going to get more of that because what it's the old adage, what you give, you receive. And so if I'm putting that out, what am I pulling back? More of who
Right.
I am and what I am.
Oh, I love that. Yesterday, going back to that, after I was listening to that conversation, having a teenager, you've raised your children, and so you understand, especially girls, right, going through this, mean girl stuff. And I got so wrapped up into it. Okay. I got so wrapped up in how she was treating my daughter that my whole insides, I woke up at 3 in the morning and I just was trying to figure out, I'm carpool tonight. I'm going to bring him home. I'm going to have a conversation with her. So then I'm listening to you talk and I know better. But I just, it's your daughter. It's like, how dare you? Don't mess with me. My daughter, oh, you're going to mess, that whole thing comes up, right? The reaction. So I'm working it through my head. How am I going to handle this? And then I'm listening to you talk to her and talking about the observer and talking about the mirror and talking about all those things that, what am I getting from, like, no. And then I went and met with a friend and she was even saying, no. I go, you're right. Oh my gosh. You know how I felt? I was like, you're right. Who am I? I'm not going to, that's nothing. Why do I need to react to that? It's all going to work out perfect. And I always tell the girls, everything's working for you, not to you. And she came down in tears. Her eyes were swollen because, worried about going to her practice. And kept telling her, like, it's all good. Everything's working for you. And she, trying to believe me as her mother that's trying to teach her this her whole life, 14 years, and pick her up. And she goes, Mom, you're right. Everything's working for me. And it just worked out beautifully. And there's magic in that. But listening to explain to people, and I have a few friends that always like, what does mirror mean? So if he irritates me, that's a mirror of me. Like it's so hard to explain that. I get it. But if you were going to explain that to my friends that don't understand that, will you explain it in a better way than I can?
Yeah, well, let me just take you back to the moment for a second. And this is the one thing that is the most difficult is people don't realize that what most of us do is we use our memory to think about the past or we use our mind to imagine the future. And but the truth of it is we can't go back or forward from this moment. Time does not and it cannot exist beyond this present moment. And so, in every moment, when I was talking about it being our point of power or our point of attraction, we are thinking and we're being from a feeling, from an emotion. And
Right.
it's that feeling and that emotion. It's like a tuner on a radio station, for example. And when you turn the dial up on the tuner, when you want to get to the radio station that you want to be at, you have static in between. And so what happens is most of us are unconscious of how we're attracting these experiences into our moment. It's because we're being from an emotion that causes a certain vibration. And we know this is true because any environment we walk into, we can feel the vibes, or what is also called a frequency. We can feel
Mhm.
them in the room. When we are in an environment with someone else, we have about 3 feet of energy that exists within a circle around each of us. And now we come into the room with somebody else. They have that same 3 foot, energy field.
Mhm.
Now their energies come together, and that's how we can feel that. So what happens with a lot of us in the moment, just let's just say it was just you sitting here thinking for a second, and maybe you're going back to a past experience about someone in particular, and you're analyzing for 16 seconds about that experience. And now you analyze again about how it bothered you or how it made you mad, and you've compiled another 16 seconds of that feeling. What if it's judgment? It's judgment. And then now you're moving in another direction, and now your perception is trying to figure out what you might have said or what you might have said differently. And now you've compiled energy again, and what happens is by 68 seconds you've built enough energy around that direction of thinking and that emotional feeling that is putting out, turning up that dial to what that feeling or emotion is. And it's causing experiences because the universe is all energy. It's
Right.
all infinite, tiny particles of white light. And so that energy you're putting out is causing an experience to be pulled into your moment. And so when I use the word mirror, basically it's revealing to you a piece of use, a piece of being, a piece of attachment to an emotion, a
Mhm.
piece of a state of mind. The experience is showing you where you're being and you're attached in yourself. And so I call it a mirror because I always think to myself, okay, Sherry, this is a
Right.
piece of you that you obviously aren't aware of. But here's the gift. The gift is as you grow that muscle of awareness, because let's face it, you can't change what you're not aware of.
Right.
And when you become aware that something's showing up in your experience that doesn't serve you and it doesn't feel good, I like to call it sitting on my own shoulder. I begin to go into third person, basically. I sit on my own shoulder and I
Mhm.
watch my behavior without attachment. And I am looking at, just like if somebody cut me off on the road and I'm like ready to do road rage and ready to like
Right.
chase them down the freeway, I'm looking at my emotional behavior, and without attachment, without judgment or what's wrong with you, man, you're doing it again, and why do you keep making these mistakes? No, I don't blame myself or even shame myself. I look at it and I say, okay, so there's obviously something that I need to correct, a
Right.
behavior that I need to correct. And so that's what I do. Now, the way that I utilize that awareness is I have a very simple statement that I make to myself. I say, what is it I really want? And I begin to speak it, because just as our thought and our emotion has power, so does me speaking to you right now. It has a tone, it has a vibration, it has a frequency. And so I already said in the beginning is we're God's embodies. So we have the same powers as God. We are individualized pieces of God, of the universe, of the quantum field. We're pieces of this. And so we can choose to align with joy, enthusiasm, love, happiness, gratitude. The problem is most of us have trouble sustaining it because we haven't built that muscle yet. And so, as I said, that's why the moment is so important. Here I am in the moment. I'm aware that I'm behaving in a way that's not serving me, or I have an experience that's showing up that's not serving me. Instead of giving it more power, I say, what is it I really want? and then I go and I answer it. What I really want is to be in a conversation right now with all of your listeners, Ashley. Woo! As I say that, as I'm so clear about that being so aligned with my heart and my truth, I have the chills shooting through my whole body. That's energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
energy saying yes. As I go deeper, what I really want is to be in a grocery store, a gas station, anywhere that I have an opportunity to meet someone in the moment and raise their lives and raise their awareness and help them tap in, turn on, and tune in
I
to the
love
gift
that.
that they are. And I go deeper. What I really want is to be all over the world, helping people of all ages tap into their power, tap into their greatness, and live their best lives. And as you see, I just went deeper, deeper, deeper with more specific truth of what I really want and who I am. And so what I've done is I have developed a habit. We talked about habits earlier. I've developed a habit of strengthening that muscle of my in myself, and just like yourselves, it's like going to the gym. When you very first start out at the health club or the gym, you're weak and you're just beginning, and sometimes you can lift a 3-pound weight, a 10-pound weight, a 20-pound weight, and then you move forward through there. And that's what this life of living in the moment and owning your power is all about. It's about developing that. It's about remembering who you truly are and what abilities you have to create the life you were born to live. This is your birthright.
Right. Oh, and to have, so when you were, I want to go back to the, when you woke up and you realized I'm here, I'm back in this body.
Yeah.
I had a choice. You learned, but I also know that you learn things that you can't share, right?
Yeah. Well,
And
I
why
mean,
is that?
here's the gift. The gift is that there's a lot going on that we're not ready for, that we're not open to. We've lived these lives where we come into the body and we have a particular family and they have their own lineage or their historical ways of believing that have been passed down through lifetime of certain habits and thoughts. And then we enter into the environment of the world. We go to school and we meet people who have had life's experiences of their own or teachings from their family, and they bring them into our world, and we take those beliefs on and we integrate them into our own belief system. And so when I had the near-death experience, I was surrounded by thousands of spirits with my soul group, ascended masters, angels, and my family members that had lived with me in other lifetimes. This is the hardest part for people to conceptualize, is that we don't die. This
Mhm.
body dies. This body transcends. We move into a world of ascension where we are immortal. We are forever. And our spirits go on. Our spirits evolve. And so that was all given to me. That gift of you can call it a download, you can call it they were speaking to me from this place of I am. Every single one of them were speaking to me as I am. And so after they showed me my life over, they showed me what I had come for, what I had chosen in this lifetime. They said that we choose in this lifetime what we're going to come and remember, that we're going to remember that we are gods in bodies, that we are going to remember we have the power to create anything. And so that's what I was shown. But I was shown that through the Sherry that had already fulfilled that purpose in another dimension. And I can use this
Wow.
biblically, because what's been said in the Bible? What did Jesus say? One, Jesus said, we are gods, ye are gods. And the
Right.
other thing he said is that we have the ability to create anything that we desire, and that we are immortal. And so here I am being shown all this. I was given time to rest. Of course, I was shown many other things, but I was told that I never had to worry, that all the right people would show up at the right moment to help me move forward.
Hmm.
And then I was given time to rest and to choose. And obviously I chose to come back. And as I ascended back or descended back into the body, the last thing that was said to me was, and you must help the world to understand that they must give of themselves freely without expecting, and love is all there is. So here I come back into the body and I'm vibrating from a frequency of pure love, of
Mhm.
oneness, of no separation between me and God, me and the universe. And so I have all these spiritual gifts. I have telepathy, I have clairvoyance. I can literally have someone show up in my moment and I can read their minds. I have these abilities to discern where the person is in their own individual lives. And so I chose in this lifetime to impact the world in helping to awaken the world. And that I would come together with other people like you, Ashley, and other people that I'm coming into the moment with, and that we will bring our power together. Because it goes back to that old adage where two or more are gathered. As we bring our power together in awareness, in understanding, that just accumulates more energy and
Right.
that vibration is higher. And so together we have the ability to help to shift the world from this idea that things are being done to us to the awareness of no one's ever done anything to us but
Right.
what we've allowed, but what we've pulled in as a result of our own beingness. And Ashley and you and I can step together in this knowingness and this awareness that there is a power that moves through and lives within us. And as we access that, the how is none of our business because there's infinite avenues, channels, and opportunities for expression. But it's deep stuff. I mean, I came back into the body and I tried to tell in 1997 what the world, needed to hear. Well, do you think that that was easy? No. What happened was is the world laughed at me, vilified me, spit on me, and called me crazy. And my own family, my father said, "You made your bed, you lie in it." And he said, "You deserve to walk homeless on the streets. They have a shelter at the local YMCA. Why don't you go there?"
Oh
And
my
my
gosh.
yeah, and my own mother, she said, "Well, her husband was the same age as me," and
I can't believe that.
that sounds
Wow.
so crazy, but yeah, he said, "I'm not responsible for
Huh.
your grown daughter and her choices." So I ended up homeless, living on the streets in the Sequoia National Forest.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the part I need to understand. So you
Yeah,
come back and your dad, they're the, they don't believe in what you're believing. So you're telling them what you learned. So and they're like, oh, you're so, you know, scary Sherry.
yeah.
Is that what happened? And then they're like, I don't have anything to do with that because they were
Well,
that judgmental. I don't know.
yeah, they were that. Well, you have to realize my father came through the 50s, the 60s, and all of that. His mother was left on a doorstep during the Great Depression. And when, they couldn't take care of their children at the time, they were having, between 11 and 15 children at a time during that time in the world. And so
Hmm.
my grandmother was left on a doorstep and a woman ended up taking her in and raising her. And so then my father was conceived during World War II when my grandmother was working in the air hangers. And so he was raised by a grandmother who basically lived her belief system from the idea of hard love, that you don't get what you want in life unless you work hard and you have to do it yourself. And so my father was an overachiever and he was a multimillionaire, but he never gave me a thing. His whole belief system was built around the idea that it's the choices you make in life. And so he thought, well, okay, you made mistakes and basically you're a drug addict and you made some really horrible choices and you deserve to experience the results of your choices. And that's why he let me walk homeless on the streets. He basically had
Wow.
judged me to that point.
Oh, I mean, just even being a parent, I just can't imagine that mind thinking that's okay. And did you have children yet? When did you have the children when you went to the Sequoia National Park? What is that
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, so no, I like to always say I have a winter crop of children and a summer crop of children. So I have grown children I had in my 20s. And what happened is my daughter was 8 and my son was a baby. He was about a year and a half when I hit bottom. And we were living in the forest because pride, one was pride. Pride wouldn't let me go get help. Pride would let me not walk back into that world of darkness that I was living and being from before I had the near death experience. And so when I ended up going through that with my parents, my mother took me to the Sequoia National Forest with a tent and supplies and food. And at the time, I had no money and you had to pay to camp. And so I had to go way to the outskirts of the forest where you didn't have to pay. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
that's how I ended up in the forest. And here's the cool thing, going back to the whole gift that was given to me in the light about never having to worry that all the right people show up at the right moment. That gift isn't only for me, it's for everyone, it's for all of you. Every single one of us has contracted for these experiences to occur, for these people to show up in our moments, good or bad, all here to help us remember what I'm sharing with you right now, which is you are so powerful and you have gifts within you to create anything. There is nothing that you are separate from, but it's time to choose that for yourself and start practicing building that muscle in yourself as if only today exists.
Right. Oh, I love that. And so when you're sleeping in the tent with your babies, you already have in the mind in your mind because you've already come from understanding you never have to worry. Were you just like a happy little mom in the forest because you knew it was all good, it was all going to work out?
Oh God, no. No, 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 no. When I literally ended up in the forest, like any human being, I thought I had been tricked from coming into the body. I was very upset and very
Oh,
angry because I didn't realize when this gift had been given to me of a second chance, I thought I was going to be that version of Sherry that I had been shown in the light that day. And
ah,
so now I'm experiencing what all of us would probably call ever loving hell. And I realized in that experience that there were situations that were showing up in the moment that I was willing to surrender and let go of, because what we've all been talking about for a while here is about how we have a point of power in the moment. That's what was shown to me on the other side. And so I'm in this whole Sequoia National Forest with my children, and I
wow.
overhear this man in a tent with all these other men in a campsite right next to me. And I hear him telling this story about how he had a near death experience. And I walk over there and I said, "Excuse me," I said, I thought I overheard you saying that you had a near death experience." And he says, "Yes, I did." And I said, "So have I." And I started to tell him what my story was. And that weekend, that whole group of men shared all their food with us. They took us fishing.
Ah,
We told stories by the campfire of the gift of the near death experience. And these other men were men who had struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction. And at the end of the weekend, the man I originally talked to, he comes to me and he says, "You forever changed my life." He says, "You took me to the next level in my life."
ah, wow.
And so he says, "Here's $15. It's yours. It's all I have." He says, "But I will never forget you." And that was just one experience that began to happen as I began to trust, as I began to let go and realize that, yeah, the bread, you can call them breadcrumbs, but the next breadcrumb would drop and I would be led to the next step, whether it was being in a grocery store and all of a sudden I'm reading some piece of food or a box of cereal that's saying the specific words that I need in that moment. Or somebody's showing up in the moment and I'm ending up in a conversation with them and they're saying exactly what I need to hear to move, take, so I can take the next step.
Right.
And that's available to all of us. But we're in the way because we're looking outward at what's going on in the world. And the world is only as a result of what's going on inward in each of us.
Right. When you, so you lived in the forest until you found the breadcrumbs to get out.
Yep.
And then your husband, you got divorced before you had the near death? I lost where he was.
Yeah. So the husband, I had been married to a military man during the 80s, and he fought in several wars and ended up in Saudi Arabia during the Kuwait War. And when he came back, he had PTSD severely. And it was during this time that he didn't know if he was coming or going in his mind. All he knew is that he still lived on the battle zone. And so
Hmm.
there were many experiences where we'd sleep with the curtains open, and he'd walk the streets all hours of night, trying to deal with it all. And at certain points, he thought I was the enemy and tried to kill me. And one point, he broke my nose. Another point, he tried to shoot me. And
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, and I got to the point where, I was not going to live like that anymore. And so we separated. And it was during this separation that he came back. I think it was for a month or so. And I ended up pregnant with my son. But I realized during that time that I no longer wanted to be subjected to that. And so we ended up getting divorced. And about 3 months after my son was, or wait, no, 3 months before my son was born, our divorce was final.
Huh.
And so yeah, and it was, part of it was during that experience when I finally got out of the Sequoia National Forest. And that was really when pride said to me, you know what? It's time to let go of your pride. And now it's time to go get help for you and your children. And I eventually ended up, getting help for this from the system, and ended up in a homeless shelter. And it was during that time that I realized I need to give my daughter an opportunity to live her life, to live a happy life until I can get on my feet. And so I called my ex-husband up, who was living with his parents at the time, and her grandparents agreed to take her. And it
Oh,
was,
wow.
yeah, and it was during that experience that you have to realize human nature, though. Mom had made a lot of bad choices. Mom had made some mistakes. And where they were in their lives was that they were going to judge, me for all the bad choices I had made. And so they turned my daughter against me. And but the gift of what I
Wow.
really want to emphasize is that as I was growing as a person, as an aware person of utilizing these universal principles and these laws of nature, and I was beginning to understand how to use them rightly, I realized that I had given my daughter a gift. And that was a gift to not be on the streets with me. It was a gift to allow me to get my life together and to get things straight. And so when I finally did have my life together and things straight, I let her make the decision whether or not she wanted to come back. And she didn't. She did not want to come back. In a lot of years, she felt abandoned, and she felt, um, that what I had done had ruined her life.
Hmm.
But eventually, when she was old enough to really, really realize what had happened, and to give me the chance to explain, our lives changed. And the gift is that we started to develop and grow a relationship. And then eventually my own daughter ended up with leukemia in 2017. And that was the most healing part of the
Wow.
journey for both of us, because she finally let go at the level where she was ready to allow her mom to coach her, to allow her mom to share with her these universal principles and these laws and ways of being that I'm sharing with all of you. And literally last year, in about March, she had the port taken out of her chest, and she is now in total remission. So,
Oh, wow.
what
Is
a
that one?
blessing.
No kidding. Is that one of the twins?
No, so that's my oldest. She's
Oh,
32.
oh, wow. Okay. So this is the one that you let the grandparents raise. This is who we're
Yeah.
talking.
Isn't
Okay,
that,
good.
and when you talk about a whole 360 of healing,
Right.
and here we are. And then And then my son, the baby who was homeless with me on the streets, he's now 26. And then I don't know if you want to get into this, but I had a second near death in 2004. And it was during that time that one of my babies was born without a throat. She was born with half vertebrae in her upper shoulders and half vertebrae in her lower lumbar. And she was also born with double hernias. And they say that they call it an anomaly, and that it happens in 1 in 20,000 women who deliver a baby or babies over the age of 35. And I was almost 40. And basically what happens is they completely stop growing around 6 weeks when you don't even know you're pregnant. And they can call it divine intervention or miraculous restart. But basically all of a sudden, the child will begin to grow again in your stomach. And so in this case, my little girl was born with what they call trachea esophaga fistula. So her throat grew to a box and the esophagus grew to her lungs. And in my case, 1 week later, I ended up going into total cardiac arrest and had another near-death experience. And it was in this experience that I was told that you know who you are, you know why you came in this lifetime, and you're meant to go back and to share that with the world. That is your legacy. That's why you've chosen this time to come to the planet. And I remember watching myself come back into my body, and I could hear my husband like freaking out in the outside of the ICU, and him and the doctor walk in together, and the doctor begins to say basically that I had a massive heart attack. They call it total congestive heart failure or cardiomyopathy. And I had only 37% heart function, and that within 6 months, I'm going to need a heart transplant, and then I'm never going to exercise again. And basically, I just looked at him and I said, listen, I said, I've already had one near death experience. I know why I'm here and I know what I'm meant to do. And I said, I'm going to heal to 100%. And he looked at me like, are you nuts?
Right.
And I just said to him, I said, I'm going to show you what's possible for all of us. And basically what I did is as I've been stating through this whole conversation is I began to surrender only in today. And so I like to emphasize the word from. I was being from wholeness. And so I would go into my imagination and I would imagine that every artery was flowing with blood perfectly, and that the heart was pumping powerfully, and that every cell was living in a dance of wholeness. And so each day I would not let people talk to me about sickness or illness or I like to call it dis-ease in the body.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
and I would only steer the conversation towards how I'm going to outweigh the odds, how I'm going to persevere, how I'm going to win. He said no exercise. I exercised anyway. No, I didn't go through like, oh my God, let me go out and full on doing aerobics. But what I did is I did the easy things: exercise, walking, little movements that I could do. And I kept moving forward every single day in the belief. And there were moments, come on, we're all human. There were moments where I was like, is this real? And then immediately, just like I said earlier to all of you, I would go into what is it I really want? I want to impact people. I want to help wake up people. I want people to know their power. I have to do that in me. I have to be the example in me first. And fast forward 3 years later, and this is 2007, I walk into the office one day and he says, you have a seat. And I'm very silly and playful. So anybody that I end up, developing a relationship with becomes a very, fun time, because I'm like, I'm going to show you what I can do, kind of
Love
thing.
it.
And that's what happened. And so he sits me down and he basically says, when I very first met you and you were talking this way, I thought, oh my goodness. He's like, this is like over the top, airy fairy thinking. And he says, and I told you that, you remember that? And I said, yes, I do. And I said, I told you that anything is possible. And so that's what ended up happening is I showed him over a 3-year period what's possible for all of us. And it ended up, I healed to 100%. And he says your medication is harming you rather than helping you. And he weaned me off all my medication. And I have not been on anything since 2007, and I'm completely healed.
Oh my gosh, I love that story so much because we can't say anything that in that way. It's all dis-ease, and we don't talk about sickness. We talk about wellness. But I'm just this is what I'm getting right now, and I'm just going to go with it. So I
Yeah.
feel so when I think of you, I feel like your blueprint or your plan before you came was to have these near death experiences. You know, you have the veil, so you don't know, all this stuff, right? So then you go and um, you have this first near death. You get this message, and before you came to this earth, you decided that was going to be the way you learned to see the true Sherry,
Yep.
right? So you had to see that to come back and then start to realize, even if you're in this national park and you're thinking, wait, this is not the life I signed up for. I thought it was going to be this beautiful Sherry that I saw.
Right.
But for you to go back and then be back in this body and go through the stuff that you've done, and then you decided I'm gonna have to do it again because I need to get more clear and more, I need to make more of an impact. But you came here to be this leader of showing people that they can do it. But I feel like all those little things that you learned, we all know that we have the blueprint of life before we come down, but yours is it makes you realize, like, I don't have a near death experience. I mean, I've interviewed people that have had them, and I hear them because I'm interested in that if I listen to something or read. But I realize what my view is you chose that because you knew it before, right? So we knew all that, but you needed to have that little memories to come back and go, wake up, Sherry. You got to wake up. Do you see that?
Oh, absolutely. And and it was a constant shifting of belief. I mean, I like to always use Jesus for example because so many people, they believe in Jesus, and I accept every religion. I mean, I was raised in the Christian belief, but what I know now is that if it was religion, we'd all be hoping the religion we chose was the right one. It's so much more than that. And Jesus taught all of us that as a person thinks, so they are. And so I want to just emphasize here that it's very important to understand, this single point, that knowing that there is a law, and these are laws of nature, laws of vibration, and they correspond to our belief and our thoughts. And so what that does is it indicates to us to be aware of what we think. And that's why I said, how do you change this? How do you do something about it? Well, it's about developing awareness in the moment. And you can't change what you're not aware of. And so as you become aware of your beliefs and your emotions in the moment, what happens is you learn to observe with detachment, without emotional attachment. And then you become an intention and attention to the beliefs and the emotions of already having what you desire. And when you understand this and you broaden this, your awareness gets developed. And that's so important for everyone.
Right. And do you tell people, I want you to explain how you get your vibration up, how you live in your moment in the morning and how you keep that, because I'm all about vibration, and we in this house and the kids I teach, it's all about vibration and showing them that you got to really, it is a muscle.
Yeah.
And just like everything else that we've been talking about, and the thoughts you think are a muscle. You catch those thoughts and you switch them. And I teach them, like, as soon as that little trigger, like, oh, just switch it. And then you get where, like, I can't even say anything, like, it's really hard to, say anything that I'm not any negative thing, or everything is going to be, I'm creating my life, with thoughts
Yeah.
create our reality.
Right.
So, but I love your morning routine. I'm a huge morning routine. That's part of one of my modules with the kids, is teaching them a morning routine. And because I think, gosh, if kids realize that if they wake up, they're happy, they always have to smile before they get out of bed. They have to feel the gratitude, right? We feel
Right.
it. And it's all about the feeling. And and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, I am beautiful, I'm loving, I'm strong, I'm amazing, and I love your whole thing and I want you to do it.
Okay, so when I get up in the morning, I call it the 60-second happy blast. And so I get up and I look at myself in the mirror, or I have a mirror that's in my kitchen. It's a long mirror. And I know this is so funny, but I literally look at myself, sometimes naked in the mirror. And I just look at my smile. I'll smile and I'll be like, "You're so beautiful. You're so amazing. I love your spirit and I love your heart." And then I'll scan my body from the top of my head all the way to the tips of my toes, and I'll talk to every area of my body. "Oh, I love, love, love your eyes, and I love your nose, and I love your smile," and I'll watch myself smile. And then I will scan all the way down, talking to every part of my body and telling it about how much I love it and how beautiful it is. And then I'll talk to my cells, and I'll say, "Cells, thank you for providing to me perfect health and wellness and wholeness, and that every cell dances in the joy of love." And then I do that for 60 seconds. And then I sit down and I write out, I have a gratitude book. And in the gratitude book, I state what I am and what I desire from the place that it's already happened. So I
Yes.
start out the sentence and I write, "I'm so happy and grateful now that." So like I have a live show and podcast as well called High Vibe Nation. And so what I do is I'll say something like, "I'm so happy and grateful now that Bob Proctor is on my show and he's sharing all these amazing principles and ways to think from the scientific side." And then I'll go, "I'm so happy and grateful now that I've got Michael Beckwith on High Vibe Nation sharing the 4 stages of consciousness." And you see how I'm feeling in this emotion as I'm explaining it to you? Well, that's what I'm feeling when I'm writing it down. I mean, I'm writing it down, feeling all this. And so I do 10 things I'm so grateful for. I'm so happy and grateful that I have this amazing house and every room is filled with energy. And I walk outside the back door and I have this swimming pool that I can, get into in the summer heat of Arizona, and I can have amazing people over to entertain and have conversations. And ooh, it feels so wonderful. And then I get still, I get settled, and I take that time to meditate, that time to, open myself up for spirit to come through me, to speak to me, to have communion with. And I get into no thought. And so many people say, "Oh, let me do a guided meditation," or they say, "I can't do meditation." And it takes time. It takes time of building a muscle into meditation, just like all the things we've been discussing here today. And I keep pulling myself back to no thought, getting still, and allowing this muscle of meditation to develop and to grow. And like we've been talking, I mean, it's during these times that this higher spirit, you can call it God, will start talking to me just like we're talking right now, like my
Hmm.
best friend. And it's awesome.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. But is that something that you've, fine-tuned and gotten really clear over the years? Like it's not something that like all of a sudden you started hearing the voice, or you've always had that?
Well, I've always had it since the time I was a little girl, where I noticed that, but it was only when I started to develop the stillness, because I had a very chatty mind, which a lot of people have. And I was conditioned to live in the outer world and look at what was happening outwardly. Um, in the world, what the world taught us, that we got to go out and, work hard to make things happen. And we've got to hustle and we've got to compete with other people. And after near death experience, I realized that wasn't true, that everything happening outwardly was because of what was happening inwardly in me. And so as I learned to develop the meditation, the more that like turning the dial up on the channel, the more that communication came through clearer and clearer. And I was tuning my tuner. See, the universe comes through the top of our crown chakra, which is called the thalamic gate. And so as I began to strengthen that tuner, the clearer the messages came through. And that's what happens now is it's developed in me to the point that some pretty awesome, amazing things happen to me, and it's possible for all of us.
And you've been trained by Michael Beckwith. I remember the story where you got the postcard
Yeah.
and how that
Yeah.
led you to him. That was a breadcrumb.
Hmm. So remember what I said when I came back into the body after this experience, I was vibrating a pure love. And so what happened was is when I got out of the streets homeless, I ended up in Venice Beach in a commune. And interestingly enough, it was, the next experience that I needed, living in a commune with a lot of people, understanding them right where they're at, coming to love them for where they were at. And when you're vibrating from this higher frequency, what happens is you're attracting what I said earlier, your match or the things that are in alignment with you. And so we call it the mystical. And it's the things that are unseen that begin to show up. And so in this case, a postcard arrives to the commune one day, and the postcard basically says on it, what I was told in the near death experience, that we create our own reality, that we are pure consciousness, and that we are gods in bodies. And so it has an address on it, and it says Agape. And this is in 1997. And so Agape, which is a big monstrous church now, and Michael Beckwith was in the movie The Secret. He was in a smaller church at the time, and so all I had was a bicycle. So I put my baby on the back end of the bicycle one Sunday, and I rode my bike to his church, which was, quite a distance. And so at the end of the church, he's standing at the back end of the church, and he asks me, he says, how did you hear about us? And I said, I received your postcard. And this big smile comes over his face, and he, hugs me, and he whispers in my ear, we don't advertise. And of course, I was embarrassed because remember, my
Huh.
prior self was like, wanting to prove myself to people. So here
Right.
I am, I'm embarrassed. And he
Huh.
and he holds my hands and he looks at me and he says, sweetie, he says, your God within you showed you exactly what you needed to read and see in that postcard to bring you here. Nowadays I go back to that whole saying by Rumi. Rumi says, what you are seeking is always seeking you. And
Yes.
so what I was seeking to do was to be around other like-minded people, people that understood what I understood. And here I'm guided to Michael Beckwith's church, Agape. And I can't tell you how many times I was in that church, and I swear to God, I thought God was speaking directly to me
Huh.
through him. And that's what this is all about. The mystical is available to all of us. And as we seek, that's the cause of what's pulling into our lives more of what we want or more of what we don't want. And so here I am today, and I have continually had the willingness and the desire to grow into that woman that I had been shown 24 years ago. And here's the gift. Why did I have to go through all of those experiences of living in Las Vegas and the mafia and this and that, struggling, walking homeless on the streets? Why did I have to go through all of that? You know why? Because in order for me to talk to people like I'm talking right now, I had to meet people right where they're at. I had to discover and find out who I was, and I had to practice what I preach from being from that place in order to share with others how to do it.
Oh, totally. Oh my gosh. Think of that. Think of all the way, like looking at it from where you're at in your life and seeing how the puzzles was put together, and to have that knowing that it was all perfect.
Yep.
And that's why all the things that when everyone looks at their life and they're in this place of worry, or, how am I going to pay the rent, or how am I going to do this? And to have that knowing of that you never have to worry.
Yep.
Have you ever had to? I mean, in real life, like there's going to be some man that's going to give you $15 to get gas in your car to get there. There's going to be those little breadcrumbs, and to trust and know and surrender and let it happen and be aware, right? Have that
Right.
awareness.
That's right.
And if people like you are and like I and me that want to show everyone to see that and open your eyes, because life is amazing, and it's
Yes.
all we're all God, and we're all connected, and we're all love, and to be in that place and have that muscle that keeps you in that place. And I know we're human and we'll, go down that little, alley once in a while, but we have a muscle, so we'll bring ourselves back. I love it. And I know we're wrapping up, but I
Yes.
see, I told you I could have part 2 and because there's so many things, but what, tell it, so you have your podcast. I know you have so many things, and I listened to you on Clubhouse, and I just resonated with your message, and I had to connect with you, and, I just really felt, something in your energy that I had to, I mean, obviously, we were connected, and here we are. But how else? Besides High Vibe Nation podcast, which is amazing. What else?
Yeah, so I have recently partnered up with Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, who is one of the most well-known neuroscientists in the world, and we're bridging the gap between spirituality and science. He's able to show through particular types of equipment that he uses. He can show people what's happening in their energetic system, their vibrations through measuring people's chakras. We can put that up on the screen. We can brain map people. We can find out where in their brains are they having issues with letting go, having issues with what information that may be firing at the front of their brain and not getting, and it's misfiring to the back of their brain. There's just so many incredible things that him and I have done, and he's traveled all over the world with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and so really amazing stuff. And so you can find us through that at thoughtuniversity.online. There's some pretty amazing things we're doing, and you can find out more about me at sherrygideons.com.
Oh, I love it. You're amazing. You're an angel. Like I just see you sitting there going, "Oh, she's like, I mean, an earth angel, the angel that is sitting here glowing bright with those beautiful eyes." And I'm looking at you. When I see you speak, it's like it's just coming, you know,
Oh,
like it's just coming through you. And you are this beacon of light, love, everything. I mean, what a blessing. I'm so grateful to have met you.
likewise,
I
absolutely.
will be, I wish I was like in Arizona. It's not that far. I'm sure we will pass each other
Yeah,
again for sure.
absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate this so much. We'll have to do part 2.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Sherry.
All right.